All right, welcome back to another bonus segment of the Always Adaptive podcast. I'm your host, Randall James. I am a strength and running coach, 10 years of experience. I like to teach people how to work out at home, and I like to teach people how to add strength training to their running programs. But anyways, today's topic is about a middle ground episode on the YouTube channel Jubilee. And if you're not familiar with middle ground, they'll essentially have a really polarized topic. They'll bring on 4 people from both sides, and they'll ask them various questions and have them all sit down and debate. And so this particular episode was about natural athletes versus enhanced or people on steroids. And they talked about a whole bunch of different topics. And if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I am against steroids. And so this particular episode really interested me. And I thought there was some interesting questions and some interesting takes. And so I thought it would be good to discuss because this video is still relatively new. You should definitely go watch the whole thing to get a sense of what everyone's talking about. It's about 2 days old, so still fresh, but I'm going to play the intro and then we will get into some stuff.
But today I am back as a moderator, and today's topic is natural versus steroids. Step forward if you agree. Steroids are dangerous and should not be normalized in fitness.
All right, so before we get into any other clips, I think it's important for me to answer this. I believe that steroids are extremely dangerous, and I believe, no, they should not be normalized. A few reasons. I think on the danger front, one of the biggest side effects is increased blood pressure. So in a moment, you're going to hear someone talk about some of the side effects, but it is pretty well known at this point that steroids or TRT increases your blood pressure. But I think on the normalized front, what this is telling younger folks to do is, hey, you don't have to work hard anymore. You can just take an injection or whatever, a cream, and bypass the hard work essentially. And before you say anything about, oh, it still requires hard work, no, it doesn't. There's a really well-known study now where they had 4 groups, a group on testosterone not working out, a group on testosterone working out, a group not on testosterone working out, and a group not on testosterone not working out. The group that was on testosterone that was not working out built more muscle than the group that was not on testosterone but was working out. And so what that tells you is that you can essentially do nothing and just take some sort of steroid or TRT, and you will make massive gains, ridiculous gains. So let's get into another clip here and we'll discuss it on the other end.
And that's one of the biggest problems. And we can go down a list of like cardiovascular issues, liver damage, skin and hair changing, heart problems, ultimately death if you go far enough down the rabbit hole. Just recently we had credible, like highly respected bodybuilders in the industry drop dead. Cedric McMillan, Sean Roden, Dallas, George Peterson, and all of these gents were mid to late 30s and early 40s.
Yeah, and by the way, let's not forget about Jackson Tippett. This was one of the most recent ones, and I made a video about him, and that one was really interesting because he actually stopped taking anything. And this lends itself to the point that you're not safe just because you stop. I mean, think about cigarettes. I myself used to be a cigarette smoker. I smoked for a really long time. I'm under no illusion that the damage that was caused back when I was smoking is still there. Maybe it's healed a little bit, but the likelihood that I'm able to heal my body of all that damage, the years and years and years of damage, is very slim. And so you have to think of steroids the same way, especially on the point of the increased blood pressure. With an increased blood pressure, you're forcing your blood through your arteries. And when that happens, you're damaging the endothelium, which is like the lining of your arteries. That damage, it's just like if you cut your arm, you get a scar there. So you might have a scar right now on your body that you cut your arm 15 years ago, and you can still see that scar. That same thing happens everywhere else in your body. So just because your body has a healing mechanism doesn't mean it's healing all the same, so that's a very important point. Just because you stop something, if you're on testosterone for 5, 10, 15 years or whatever, and then you suddenly stop, you're not getting those years back.
Saying that steroids are dangerous. What about you have an inflammation attack? Prednisone, is that dangerous?
Too much McDonald's is dangerous.
Sure, but that's not necessarily used to
So
get
in the fitness
aesthetic,
world,
to become aesthetic, right?
Well, the question
and
was
most
not
guys that
addressing
are at the
aesthetic.
gym that I see.
The question was broad. Are steroids bad? And that's the problem with the natty camp. You guys vilify all steroid use when it's therapeutic. AIDS patients, should they be allowed to use steroids?
I'm a natural.
Yeah, so this is an important point. He brings up prednisone and he says that the natty camp sort of poo-poos on all steroids. Yes, prednisone. So I'm on prednisone currently. I take it intermittently. I don't take it every day, and I don't take large doses like they recommended because I did my own research and I found a lot of studies out there that taking it intermittently will give you the same anti-inflammatory effects while mitigating some of the nasty side effects. By the way, the biggest one is muscle wasting. So I'm on prednisone. I'm actually at a very high disadvantage. It is incredibly hard for my body to build muscle. It wants to get rid of muscle. Prednisone has a lot of nasty side effects. Type 2, it can steroid-induce type 2 diabetes. So Mark bringing up prednisone, to me, that's a non-issue because yes, it is bad. And when possible, you should not be on prednisone. That's not a good drug to be on. I myself am on it because I have ulcerative colitis. There's no cure for that. And I would rather be on an intermittent small dose of prednisone than be on some, crazy infusion that I have to sit down in a chair for, 4 hours every 6 weeks or something crazy like that while I'm getting a hold of my colitis symptoms and all that stuff. And then ultimately I'll get off prednisone and I go through phases with it. But I don't think that that's a fair comparison because I'm not taking prednisone to bypass hard work. I'm not taking prednisone to have this amazing physique. In fact, it has made my entire fitness situation 10 times harder than you could even believe. It makes you put on fat. So it's hard for me to even stay lean. So it's hard for me to build muscle. It's hard for me to lose fat. My blood sugar is always elevated. My sleep is messed up because it messes with your adrenals, essentially like overstimulating your adrenals. So it's a bad drug. Yes, absolutely. No one should get on prednisone unless they absolutely have to. And if it's a temporary thing.
The kids.
Well, you're not deceiving them because cigarettes and steroids are dope. Like, you're out here getting jacked. To be in the NFL, you gotta be on steroids, which is dope. Being jacked, dope. Smoking darts, dope. It's all dope. Why are we pretending like it's not dope? Everyone knows it's not healthy, but why are we not talking enough about, like, wow, that is a really fun, cool thing that changes life for the better. Even though I know it's unhealthy, everyone's hammering the unhealthy, unhealthy, unhealthy. A good cigarette and some coffee, that's awesome.
Well, first,
Being jacked and smoking cigarettes is dope. Well, I will agree that being jacked is dope, but doing steroids is not dope. Okay, so first of all, this guy's name is Togi. He's 24 years old. He doesn't know anything. He is a child as far as I'm concerned. And this is what we like to call first order thinking. He can only see what's right in front of his eyes. He can only see the gratification. He can't see the delayed gratification, and he can't see the long-term consequences that are going to come from this. Just to give you some context around this kid just took some laced Adderall because he was up for 3 days doing all kinds of internet shenanigans stuff, and he almost died. He ended up in the hospital. So this is not a kid that you want to take your health advice from. Again, he's young. He doesn't know anything. But either way, to say cigarettes are dope, no, they're not. When you're young, yes, you think they are dope. You think this makes me feel really good. It's a drug addiction. That's what it is. I overdosed twice on pain pills. I've had a very lengthy addiction history. I thought pain pills were dope until they weren't. I almost lost my life twice in my 20s. So that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying exactly what I was thinking back in the day where, oh, these pain pills make me feel really good and they allow me to do all kinds of cool things. And I have a fantastic euphoric mood and I can have great conversations with people and just feel amazing all the time. That's dope until I almost die. And that's what this leads to with the steroids. Yes, it'll give you an incredible amount of muscle and strength and aggression in the gym. But at what cost? What are the long-term effects?
So what's the number one comorbidity? Obesity. We should not celebrate fatness. We should shun fat people. We should help them lose weight. We should tell them that is not good. To celebrate something that will inevitably lead to them dying, that is something we should not celebrate. We need to be helping these people lose weight by not glorifying being fat, by not glorifying being gluttonous, by not glorifying being lazy. Also, being fat makes you stupid. Your brain will not operate as well because your oxygenation to your brain will be lowered. There is nothing good from being overweight and fat. We should not glorify things that are going to kill people.
Okay, so he said a couple things there, and keep in mind, he just contradicted the crap out of himself there. You know, first and foremost, Mike Israetel was just on the Diary of a CEO podcast and talked about how he has an excessive amount of brain fog all the time.
They may, in the long term, reduce your overall intelligence, but it seems that if you stop taking them, you get most, if not all of that back, but maybe not all of it. So they do make you dumber as a general heuristic. That's probably true.
It's not like you take steroids and just because you have a higher level of aggression, that aggression translates into an intelligent brain. Like that's not how it works. But what he's saying there is that we shouldn't be glorifying something that is going to kill people. And it's like, okay, well, if you can apply that to obesity, then why can't you apply that to steroids? People are going to lose their lives from steroids. People already have lost their lives from steroids. So it doesn't make any sense for you to have an issue with someone being obese and not have an issue with someone being on steroids. Doesn't make any sense. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth there, Mark.
And it's like, I promote taking steroids. So it's like, I'm really just saying is make up your own mind instead of looking at the magazine or going to McDonald's. So there's healthy options out there. You don't have to go to McDonald's. Even though you see it in a magazine or you see me taking steroids or they see you being healthy, it's not our job to make sure that they're doing, like you're trying to say we should herd people into being, like living your lifestyle.
I think the most important.
So what he just said there at the end, it's not our job to make sure that people like to herd people into a similar lifestyle as us. I completely disagree with that. 100%, it is your job. You are classified as an influencer. You chose this life. People pay you money for you to tell them what to do to get in better shape, to get stronger, to get a better physique. I'm a personal trainer. People pay me money for me to teach them how to lift weights at home, how to implement strength training into their running programs, how to implement running programs into their strength training. People are paying me for that. That is my job. And so for him to say that, he's relinquishing responsibility in a lot of ways. And I think that's at the core of his argument. He doesn't want that responsibility, even though it's inevitable that he already has it. I'm sorry, Togi, it is your job.
To me, and they tell me I don't want it to be too big. And trust me, I've been trying to get too big for years now. So I haven't been doing it for a while, of course, but like, it's really hard to get there. So I wouldn't say like there's anything as too much muscle.
Majority of you here know Larry Wheels, and I'm saying this because he's already spoken on this to the public. It's not like I'm, breaching privacy, but he was once so big to the point where he was in the mall going up stairs. I can't remember how big the flight of stairs was, but he got to the top and he had to rest for a second and recollect his breath because he was out of breath. And then there are times when it just becomes to the point where you can no longer function as a basic human being.
So a couple of things there. I really like that Larry Wheels story because I'm sure a lot of you have watched some YouTube videos where you see this big jacked guy on the YouTube screen, and for whatever reason, he's just standing there getting interviewed and he's out of breath. That happens very often. I've seen that so frequently over the past 12 years or so that I've been in fitness. But the first guy where he says that it's basically impossible to get too much muscle, so he doesn't think that there is such thing as having too much muscle. Well, the guy, Eric Janicki, that's hosting this thing and asking the questions, in a moment, you're going to hear him admit that he does believe that he himself has too much muscle. And this is a point that I've tried to hammer down for a long time now. There is such a thing as having too much muscle. The more muscle you have on your frame, the more stressed out your heart can be. And this is there's a reason why bigger dogs die earlier than smaller dogs. They are just stressed out at a physiological level a lot more than a smaller dog will be. So me personally, I believe that someone that's, let's say me, for example, so I'm 6 foot and I'm 185 pounds or so right now. If I got up to 240 pounds, yeah, I would probably look amazing if I stayed lean, but that would stress me out. That would stress my heart out because right now my heart is a certain size. It has a certain volume of blood that it can pump at a certain time. And so for me to all of a sudden increase my size, my heart's going to have to adapt to that too. And a lot of times those adaptations are not good. Cardiac hypertrophy is a killer among athletes. That is a very real thing. And so that goes back to the Larry Wheels story. Larry Wheels going up the stairs has all of this extra muscle on his frame. Those muscles require more blood, they require more oxygen, and his heart has to work a hell of a lot harder to get all of that muscle mass up those stairs. So it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to have all that muscle. Now, one of the guys in the video, he said, well, that's what cardio is for. Well, I hate to break it to you, bud, but if you've talked to any amount of people in the bodybuilding community, cardio kills gains, remember? So there's like, even the bodybuilding community is split on this. And again, this is something I've tried to hammer home of, hey, it's good to have muscle, it's good to have strength, but it's also good to have an amazing level of cardio, to have a really high VO2 max. That is going to ensure that, yeah, your muscles aren't stressing your heart out all the time. Having good cardio is amazing and super important. And the bodybuilding community is completely split on this, where there's like people that'll say, oh, just get on the elliptical. So like even the level of cardio they're doing isn't really improving their VO2 max all that much. If you want to improve your VO2 max, you have to do longer, harder intervals. And the slower stuff that you're doing, you have to go for a long time. Just doing 30 minutes of fasted cardio first thing in the morning before you're training or whatever, that's not going to improve your VO2 max. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. But then there's the other camp that are like, no, you don't need cardio. You don't need to do cardio to burn fat, and just doing elliptical and all this stuff to burn calories is a waste of time. And so for people to even bring up cardio in this discussion, it's sort of laughable in a lot of ways.
I think some of it does lend itself to, like I said, being a taller guy, but I think even would consider myself an intelligent human to know the fact that like this size is not healthy long term. Like, you know, there is a plan, 35, start downsizing to like closer to 240, probably by 40, closer to like 220, 215, probably do the whole like Greg Doucette version of just doing more like aerobic type activity.
And so I love that he brought up Greg Doucette there, because I think Greg Doucette is probably an S-tier fitness influencer, where he was a competitive bodybuilder. He has an incredible amount of muscle, an incredible amount of strength, and he has amazing cardio. He's a cyclist, and he preaches that. He preaches that cardio is extremely important, very similar to myself. And I think we need more fitness influencers out there, which is happening with the uprise of like hybrid athletes or whatever. I don't like that word because it's just baseline good fitness. It shouldn't be called a hybrid. You should just say, hey, I have good fitness or I have poor fitness. If you have a bunch of muscle, but you have no cardio, you have poor fitness. I'm sorry, you're not fit. That's like, you're no different than an obese person. A 250-pound person with a lot of muscle and no cardio is no different to me than a 250-pound obese person with a lot of fat and no cardio. Doesn't make a difference to me. I'm sorry. But so here you have Janicki straight up admitting he knows and he has a game plan. And I think that's incredibly smart, and we need more of that. And that's why this dialogue is so flippin' important, because there are kids out there, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds that are thinking about hopping on a cycle, and they're not thinking long-term. Again, they're just looking at what's right in front of them. They have no long-term thinking. First order thinking is all that, it's just like instant gratification. And so Eric has long-term thinking. He's thinking 3, 4, 5, 6 steps down the line. What is my exit strategy? What am I going to do after this? And his plan to implement cardio like Greg Doucette, I think, is an amazing idea. And so, look, if you're going to get on it, obviously it's your choice, but you have to understand that it is dangerous. There's no getting around that. You will take years off of your life depending on how far down that rabbit hole you go. If you are just thinking about doing a cycle to bring your testosterone up to normal levels, please try everything in your power to get your test to normal levels using sunlight, fat intake. Cardio can increase testosterone. If you're not weight training, weight train. Change the way you're weight training. Are you doing heavy compound lifts? There's a lot of research out there that heavy deadlifts and squats increase your testosterone. There are certain protocols that you can use, German volume training, all kinds of different things. Seafood, fresh air, lowering your stress, right? Improving your sleep. These are all boxes that are like the most important things you're going to have to do anyway to build muscle. So you might as well try all those things first before you jump on something that could potentially change your life for the long term and potentially lead to you dying in your 20s or 30s, which I believe is just really sad. But I'm really happy that Eric admitted that, because he has a lot of muscle. And again, back to my point that once that damage is done, who knows if you can heal from it. And I hope he's thought about that, because him being at the size he's at, he is massive. And the amount of damage he is causing his body with each year that he's at that body weight, who knows if he gets back down to 215 or whatever, is he going to get those years back? I don't think so. I really don't. And I think most of the really smart bodybuilders and powerlifters out there, they're under no illusion either. I keep bringing up Mike Israetel, and I think he is probably one of the smartest people in the bodybuilding community, and he's wide open about the negative side effects, and he's wide open about how being on stuff and being too large, in fact, does take off years from your life. So those are my thoughts. Again, I recommend you go watch the whole thing, because obviously I can't capture all the nuance and the long conversations and arguments in this. I was just playing some of the clips that caught my eye and that I thought would be important to discuss. But if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I release a video. I release a full podcast every Tuesday at midnight. And I also do bonus segments like this, where I'll just find a certain segment, a news topic or something that's going viral that just interests me, and I'll just talk about it, just shoot the shit on it. So yeah, I appreciate you. If you're still here, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I will see you at the next one.